Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Toasted Podcast. We're really happy to be back and recording more episodes with our good friend, Dan McAlpin, Director of HR at Newark Central School, but more importantly, previously one of my colleagues, where I served as assistant to the principal. And I wanted to just take that right out. We'll just pull that rug right out from under you because I was frequently introduced that way. So that felt good. I feel like we're off to a really good start so far.
Well, I really appreciate being here. Really appreciate being on the podcast. I am a fan of the podcast. Listen to it all the time. And I did.
Dan.
You're welcome. I did get some of those mentions, and I wanted to kind of, before we even got going, clear the air about some stuff. There was the comments about the Lady and the Tramp situation that you and I were in there.
Yes.
Yeah. I knew you'd remember this.
Of course. So what happened was Nick and I, we both had the habit of picking up garbage in the hallways. If there was a piece of paper on the hallway, we'd pick it up and we'd throw it away. It was just part of our nature. And I think it was like a locker clean out day or something like that. So it was toward the end of the school year. It was a locker clean out day, and there was paper and pencils and all kinds of other trapper keepers and such all over the hallway floor. And Nick and I were sweeping it up with our feet and like into one pile. We were kind of at the opposite ends of the hallway, and we were sweeping it with our feet into one pile so that we could pick it up and throw it away. And as we were sweeping with our feet and toes gently touched each other's. And Nick turned to me and he said, "We just had a real Lady and the Tramp moment there." And we both burst out laughing. It was hilarious. It was a wonderful one of the first of many Lady and the Tramp moments for me and Nick.
Yeah, we did have a few.
So it was a blast.
I love
it was
it.
a blast
I
working
love
with Nick. That's for sure. We always had our fair share of laughs.
I was fairly certain you'd remember that story, and I just, for some reason, I couldn't remember if like we bent down to pick up the piece of paper. And but that seemed a little too
fortunately
close.
we didn't bend down and or anything like that. It was just the touching of the feet.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Just the touching of the feet.
So was there more to clear up, or is that just
that was the most the most needed to be cleared up for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
You guys did great work in Bloomfield. You were quite the dream team. So as you're at the time in a neighboring district and seeing it happen, it was really exciting. So it's fun to have you guys back on here together, and definitely to say congrats. The hardest part I think about education is that the students, once they move on, that piece of you is often not there anymore either, because you're not in people's memories or minds, until they greet you in Wegmans very tall and they say hello and you're like, who are you? But they always remember the impact you had on them. So just note that.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you.
So Dan is a music fan, and
are we.
Margie, I don't know if you know this about Dan, but he's a music fan with a very eclectic taste.
I would expect
we would have some pretty
less.
knockdown drag out discussions. Yeah. So
knockdown drag out. Why? Is that because you're judgmental, Nick, about his music choices? Is there something to clear the air here right now about this?
Yeah, that's probably fair, Margie. Yes. There's some judgment, but I mean, Nick is also, he's very particular about his type of music, his brand of music. So if you stray from Nick's brand, he gets a little judgmental about it.
I do.
It's good that you can admit that openly, Nick. That is. But we're going to be a judgment-free zone here, and Dan's allowed to like whatever Dan likes.
That's right.
See, maybe I don't understand what happens every time we have a guest. It's like Nick against Margie and guest. I need a guest on my side.
We're on your side. We're helping you grow.
If you're listening to this, I don't want to grow anymore. All right, fair enough. I can be judgmental, and so I trepidatiously reached out to Dan, and I said, Dan, we need a tunes or Toast and Jam episode, 10 songs that you turn to when times are tough. And knowing full well that this could be an interesting list, I am really fascinated to have this discussion.
Perfect.
So I bet I could call a couple of the artists, but I won't.
I would be interested to hearing what your predictions are, but
at the end.
And if you guessed right, then that would be quite the testament to your knowledge of me. But how do you want me to just roll it out? You want just my 10 songs? You want me to talk about each song? You want me to? There's probably copyright issues where you can't play them and things like that. But
no, we can't. Play them,
we can't. We cannot play them. But you can talk about. Oh, Margie,
I shine. You
don't understand.
Margie, you know this.
I do know this. I'm excited.
There was one. I just have to tell a one quick story. For some reason, and I don't even remember why, we started one day, or it was after school. Oh, it was before a band concert. That's what it was. And Dan and I were talking about Radiohead, which hopefully, I don't think this song would be on there, but Creep by Radiohead. And we started talking about it. And then the next thing I know, I've got a guitar, and Dan was playing something or others, I don't remember all I remember is this is the most hilarious experience. We're just jamming in the principal's office. So
I love that.
Anyway.
That's how it should be. Inspire, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
I mean, most of the time, my instrument of choice, aside from vocals, is the recorder. I played a lot of recorder, especially at school. We had a staff band that kicked off the year one year, and I did the opening to Stairway to Heaven on the recorder while Scott Donnelly played the guitar in the background. It was pretty unbelievable.
That's amazing. Yeah. That has to be some kind of never been done before record or something. I'm certain of it. That's epic.
I'm sure.
Epic recorder.
Yeah.
It was fun. Scott doing that too. It's fun to know all these people and be picturing this. Yeah. You weren't part of this, Nick?
Well, no, I played in several of the opening songs, but not in Stairway to Heaven.
Not in that particular one.
Was that the same year that we did the Touch of Grey?
I can't remember if it was that year or the year following, but there was a couple of years where we had a staff band, and Nick and all the talented people in the district would get together and they would do a concert for the staff to kick off the school year, which was super cool. And I had to sit on the sidelines until that recorder, until the recorder time came up.
Yeah. I remember that.
A lot of fun.
And
that's awesome.
And you did shine, I have to say.
A lot of shining. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Love it.
Well, yeah. So to get back to your question at hand, though, you can go ahead and talk about each song and individually and why they're important to you.
So how I kind of started thinking about it was almost like I'm just going to write down a whole mess of songs that I really like and kind of come back to kind of regularly. And then I ended up, as I was kind of writing them down, putting them into different categories. And I think for me, it was it was an exercise of identifying not only the songs that I come back to, but the things that I need in moments of stress or anxiety or pressure, those types of things where I need something, and what do I lean on and who do I lean into when I'm feeling these things. And that's kind of what came out of it. So I'll kind of talk about the songs, and then maybe towards the end, I'll put them into the categories. So my 10 songs, and I'm going to click into them.
I like it.
So the first one I had on my list was Don't Worry Baby by the Beach Boys, which is just maybe my all-time favorite Beach Boys tune. I love it.
Really?
My wife and our wedding song was a Beach Boys tune, but not that one. But the Beach Boys are just a favorite band of mine. We went and saw them together. And so it's one of those things where
I saw them when I was in high school, actually.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where the the song reminds me of the person. So like it always reminds me of my wife. So that's why I like the Beach Boys, and that's why I picked that song. The second song on the list, or actually, you know what? It's probably going to be easier.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just want to preface this and say that Jackie is a saint. For the record, for the folks who don't know your wife, I want to make sure it's like publicly known that she's a saint.
Yeah, she's terrific. Yep, best person I know.
Purely by virtue of, well, second best, but
yeah.
Oh, Nick, that was so nice. We won't tell Jackie, Dan.
Right, very good. So I think maybe I think I might have to kind of reorganize how I would lay this out. But one of the things that came to my mind was a song that I go back to, or a song that I think about when I'm in these types of situations, are songs that remind me of the people that I love. And so like that was the first song that fit into that category. And maybe what I'll do is I'll organize it that way. The second song that I had is called More Today Than Yesterday by Spiral Staircase. And that one is a little obscure, but it's a little older. I love you more today than yesterday. If you know that. Yeah. It's a really cool song.
I didn't know that.
But again, it's another tune that just reminds me of
Spiral Staircase. I'm writing these in my phone.
All right. Yes. Put them on your Amazon playlist. So that song is another one that just reminds me of my wife, and like the times that we've had together, like just a song that kind of has been a recurring song in our relationship. We've been together for a long time, so I kind of come back to that song all the time too. The next tune
that's fantastic
that fits in that category. All right, so there's two more that fit into that, or I'm sorry, there's two more. Sorry, I'm kind of reading at the same time. This one is the next two are kind of cheesy and kind of weird, but there's a tune called "Devil Knows."
We like it a lot.
A tune called "Devil Knows You're Dead" by the band Delta Spirit, and it's and so like the reason why I like it, it's another song that reminds me of my wife. It reminds me of like at the times that we spent together, but we really liked the show Friday Night Lights, and we watched that show together. And that song is at the very end. So that's like the wrap up tune when everything is kind of coming together. And so it just reminds me of her and reminds me of like an enjoyable experience that we had together. And the last one that reminds me of people that I love and things that I kind of go back to is my son, who's in the background crying right now. His name's it's okay. He's all right. His name's Joe. He's 3. And his favorite movie of all time is Rocky IV, because
that's fantastic.
Because he's my kid, so he loves Rocky IV, and his favorite song of all time is "Hearts on Fire." So we play that constantly. John Cafferty, "Hearts on Fire" is always going in the house. He sings it. My older 2 kids, they sing it too. So it's again one of those songs that like just brings up the feelings that I have for the people that I love and the people that I love most.
I love that, Dan. That's wonderful.
That's great.
Oh my gosh, I'm like all sappy and sentimental. I'm like, now I'm thinking of all these songs. Like, wow, I was going to pick a song for people. I wonder what one they would be. And now my squirrel brain is like going,
We used to do this
That's
activity.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
You got it. We used to do this activity with a good friend of ours, Mike Volpe and Amy Conklin, who are in Bloomfield. And it was like, what song do you want people to think about when you're approaching? So like if you had like a theme song that people associated with you, what song would you want people to like think about as you were the one kind of walking into the room? And the questions the responses to those questions were always pretty wild, but I don't know, it's one of those things where if you associate these positive songs with positive people, you kind of have that nice boost of energy or positivity or optimism when you're thinking about them or playing the song.
You know, really quickly, I want to just give Mike and Amy a shout out because I don't think that at the time I recognized how far ahead of the curve they were in terms of like social emotional learning. And one of the things, you know, Amy was really instrumental in bringing mindfulness into the school. I mean, this was all 4 years before the pandemic, nobody was really talking about self-care in any particular way that I remember. And Mike was really big into circles and doing really community building and restorative practice. And so just to kind of recognize how great it was to work with a team of people that, whether we talked about it using that language or not, we were always really interested in self-care and self-awareness, and it was great to kind of work with a crew.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable group of people that we had working with us, and for sure, Mike and Amy were instrumental in all the things that we did together. So, yeah, they're great people.
So this is like these are the songs that are like remind you
Correct.
of people. Okay, so are all 10 of your? So 2 questions. Number 1, did you set up all your songs that way?
No, so I just started listing songs that I liked or that I felt like some kind of emotional connection to, and then I ended up categorizing them at the end, like, oh well, these ones all remind me of people. And then the second category that I came up with were songs that what I would describe as matched my emotions. So like if I was feeling down or if I was feeling stressed, like this group of songs, they kind of either matched or perpetuated that certain emotion that I was feeling. So some of the tunes that were on that, there's a song called Blonde on Blonde, and the band is Not a Surf. So Blonde on Blonde is a famous Bob Dylan album, but the song is about the album Blonde on Blonde. So, but it's kind of slow and depressing, and so sometimes when you're feeling slow and depressed, like it kind of hits that same chord. The second one that I picked was Life on Mars by David Bowie, which is probably my favorite David Bowie tune. And I do love a ton of David Bowie, but Life on Mars, well, there's actually 2 reasons. I guess this could cross the category because it also, for whatever reason, it also reminds me of my life. But it's also one of those things where we're like kind of lost in space and searching for something to hold on to. So Life on Mars by David Bowie is the second one there. And then the third one, which I think is the last one of this group, is a tune called So We Won't Forget by, I think it's pronounced Khruangbin. It's Khruangbin, Khruangbin. And they're a really cool band. It's a 3-person band. They're really cool. They're very groovy. But this tune is extremely sad. It's really about like the loss of loved ones and things like that. So it just kind of, like I said, these are tunes that if you're feeling down and you want to feel even more down, this is the set to kind of tune into. But really, like that was part.
Do you find that that's cathartic for you? Oh, sorry, I mean to step on your talking there. Dan. Do you find that cathartic? Like when you were saying some, like does it help you as far as like process those emotions, or do you just do that so you almost like I'm going to sit with someone, but the someone is a tune, an old friend, like a tune that you're sitting there with that emotion, or is it more of a help you process it type thing, or something totally different?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, and I think it's probably the it's like the dwelling in self-pity maybe that sometimes you don't necessarily want to be doing, but you just have to be doing in that moment is like I'm not feeling good, I'm feeling a certain way, and I need the environment around me to match that emotion. And and I'm not sure if it's cathartic. Usually for me it doesn't last real long, but because like if you look at the other songs in the playlist, it turns around pretty quickly, but it doesn't last very long, but it is something that you just want to stew in it for a little bit, right? And that's sometimes maybe that is cathartic, I'm not sure, but sometimes it seems like the need in that moment is to sit with those emotions and not try to escape them.
Yeah, thanks. But that's a really good point, right? You're not trying to escape. You're not putting on something to try and lift yourself. And you're like, no, I
Right.
need to be in this space for a bit. I need to feel these feelings. And it, as much as I might not like it, this is going to help me. Otherwise, I'm just stuffing it away. So that's huge.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what tends to happen a lot of times is, you go to the things, or maybe this is for me, you go to the things that'll pull you out of that space, right? Like the first set are about the people that I love and the people that I care about. And when I think about them, like it pulls me out and kind of re-centers me to not necessarily think about the things that are bringing me down, that are depressing me, that are causing me anxiety, but think about the things that are really like positive supports in my life, like your sources of strength. There was a program in Bloomfield that we ran called the Sources of Strength, and really emphasizing the things that are positives in people's lives. And for me, it's obviously family and kids and the people that I love. So really focusing on those to draw you out of those moments. But there is those times when you just want to be in that moment. You need to sit with it for a little bit, and then be able to come out of it after you've had that time to process with it.
Yeah. Are you a repeat guy? Like, do you have that one song that you'd like, it speaks to that particular emotion or that particular feeling? You're like, I know I'm a repeat girl. I'm like, again. Like I need to have that song with me. And then I'm like, all right. I'm ready to move on now. Yeah. Are you that or no?
Not normally. So if I'm trying to learn the lyrics to a song, like I want to sing it, then I'll be a repeat guy. But otherwise,
or play it on the recorder.
That's right. If I'm memorizing it for recorder purposes, then yes. But normally it's more of like finding that set of songs that kind of match that emotion, and then kind of moving on from it.
Great, thanks. All right, so we've got 7 of them. How do you spell that? That's the one you just did there, so we won't forget. How do you spell that artist's name?
It's Khruangbin. Again? So it's Khruangbin. Really, really solid band too. They're very cool.
Yeah, I know.
Even Nick might
check
think
them out.
cool.
So I know that spelling.
Even Nick Farnell.
I do actually. They do some of the music.
That's amazing.
For NPR.
I don't know.
I think they do some of like NPR's music, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. But, yeah, really good stuff. Check it out. So
Dan, I have before you move on, I have one more question. Sorry. Margie asked about kind of how you how you use the songs, but I'm curious, are you more of a lyric person, or are you tuned like Steve, who's done a couple of these music ones with us, or actually just one, I guess, but right?
2 podcasts, one was the music, yep.
Oh, that's right. All right. So, but he was really tuned into the lyrics. But are you like a lyric brain?
More tone.
Yeah. So what are you listening
more tone.
for?
Yeah, so
tone?
Really the beat, the peppiness of the beat is really what I think about. And some of those tunes, I won't pretend to I won't pretend to know that I understand what the heck David Bowie is talking about in Life on Mars, but it sounds sad. So right.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too. It's just a tone. It's a tone for me. It's a feeling, and a lot of times my feelings will match the tone.
Awesome.
Thanks. I was just curious.
So the last category that I came up with was it was songs that are that I'll call emotional redirectors. So they change my emotional state just by listening to them. And again, this is very tonal too. But the 3 songs that I have left, the first one, and so the band is unbelievable. I don't like all of the tunes that they have, but this is my favorite. So the first song is Renegades of Funk by Rage Against the Machine. So Rage has the unique ability of changing your emotions pretty quickly when you turn on some Rage. Some of it I like, and some of it is maybe a little angrier than I want to be. But Renegades of Funk is just a dynamite tune, and I think one of the best of the Rage catalog. The second tune that
Nick,
I
do you agree
have.
with this? I see Nick's been cheering over here. Let's.
Oh, I love Rage Against the Machine.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Is that one of your top 10 songs for Rage? Just purely of a Rage genre?
Oh yeah, top 10 songs for Rage for sure. That whole Battle of Los Angeles album was dynamite.
All right.
Another Bob Dylan reference. Maggie's Farm. Yep.
That'd be an interesting trivia category. All of the songs that have some kind of Bob Dylan reference in them. There's so many, Anyway.
Might not even be possible.
Sidetrack.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, hit us. 9. Number
9 is a tune called Flow With It by St. Paul and the Broken Bones. So again, another really cool band. A lot of horns. Very kind of like jazzy band, but again, it's like a spirit lifter. And the last one is right in that same vein, and it's Casey and the Sunshine Band, Keep It Comin' Love, which is my favorite of all the Casey and the Sunshine Band tunes. But same reason, like you could put that on, and I would hesitate to think that there's anybody that wouldn't start dancing to Keep It Comin' Love.
That is awesome. I like that just 2 songs ago was Rage Against the Machine. Now we're on Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Nick warned you. I mean, I'm all over the place.
I love it. That's great.
I am a little surprised by this list, if I'm being honest.
Are you really? I wondered what you were thinking over there.
I was surprised.
Yep,
so you were through your list, right? So no Hall & Oates. And a conspicuous lack of 70s love songs.
I love 70s love songs. You give me some Little River Band or some Hall & Oates, and I'm your guy. But for whatever reason, when I'm thinking about things that I'm actually having, or like thinking about when, like the go-to songs when you're feeling vulnerable or whatever, this was kind of the list that I came up with. And again, it was categorized in that certain way. But if you jump in the car with me or anything like that, it's probably going to be more of the Hall & Oates and Barry Manilow than it would be Rage Against the Machine.
I love Barry Manilow.
Yeah, me too.
I've seen Barry Manilow in concert 3 times. I love his songs.
My brother. His songs.
Yes, you shake your head all you want to, Carnoli.
That's great. That stuff is gold, Nick. My brother and his best friend Rhino and I in high school, we went to a Barry Manilow show, and we were by far the youngest people there. We were in high school, so I drove my brother and his buddy, and we went to that Barry Manilow show, and we were, I think, 3 rows back, and we loved every second of it. It was a blast.
Oh. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh. I never saw them. A group of us from college went. So I went to Keuka College on Keuka Lake, and a bunch of us went and saw Barry Manilow, and we were you could either be inside the seats in the show. We were on the lawn because it's college with cheap seats. And we were just like singing our brains out, and it was hilarious. It was the best. That was the first time I saw Barry Manilow in concert. Yep. College crowd. It was very fun. Shout out to my KC group that we all went to see that. We're like, that's right, we're going to go see Barry Manilow. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think
phenomenal show.
So. Dan and I aligned in a lot of ways, but around music was one of the interesting points of it wasn't there was moments of intersection, like Rage Against the Machine. So I think Radiohead. We always connected on Radiohead, but I remember one time coming in, and I must have been listening to something. I was like, really pumped. I was listening to this song or whatever. And we would do like morning, welcome the kids into the building. And so we'd stand outside, and a lot of times you had a few minutes before anyone was there. So just talking about your drive in. And Dan was like, I listen to mostly 70s love songs. And I swear to God, I started laughing because I thought he was kidding me. And then I realized he was serious. And I was like, oh. What? Because I don't know. It's just like you're the only person I know who's ever said that.
And then I made it a
honest,
mixtape.
And then you made me a mixtape. That's right. Which is the purest
right.
the purest form of friendship. So it's a mixtape. But
Yep. Somebody make someone a playlist. Making a mixtape, make you a playlist.
Yep.
So do you play it often, Nick?
So,
do you do that? When you're missing Dan, do you put in your cassette tape and think of Dan? Oh, Dan.
man, I do miss cassette tapes, you know? I miss that whole culture. There was actually this really interesting, this is a tangent, but relevant to the mixtape. I was listening to this podcast about the mixtape in China. And basically Chinese rock is this really weird mixture of like all the things that you never listened to. Because what happened was Sony and a bunch of these big houses got rid of all these tapes. And they meant to discard them, but they never made it to the dump. They got resold in China. And so Chinese music became the sort of B-list American rock and roll that we never bought because it ended up getting discarded off the shelves. Like when, you know,
Oh, how funny.
record stores would get rid of stuff, they would ship it to these people and these people would sell it in China. And so Chinese rock and roll is like, I mean, this is why John Denver is kind of huge in China.
John Denver is amazing.
This is one of the reasons, because a lot of that music got sold over there, and it's a really interesting thing. But they talk about how influential the mixtape was. So then the Chinese government like said no more of these tapes, and people bootlegged them and sold these bootleg, and it became a whole like culture. Yeah, it was pretty fascinating actually.
How'd you learn this?
On a podcast called The Mixtape.
Oh, well, there.
Yeah,
that seems like
good.
an apropos,
I'll send it to you.
Story for that. That sounds amazing. But yes, that was one of my parenting pluses, I will say, is I made sure my preschool children early on knew all John Denver songs, how to sing them, sing along in the van to and fro. Yep. John Denver, love, saw him many times. My first concert I ever went to, 10 years old, at the then Rochester War Memorial, before it was called the Blue Cross Arena. And it was a stage in the round. Had never been to a live music concert before. And it was in the round. So I always thought that was fascinating too, that there was this, round stage. Yeah. And yep, my mom took me and I was just like, that was it. I was hooked.
That's awesome.
You saw John Denver?
That's really cool.
I've seen John Denver several times. Thanks. Yeah.
Wow.
CMAC.
Cool.
Yep. Saw him at CMAC. Saw him one other place too. He and Barry Manilow are the two artists that I have seen 3 times. I sobbed when the news came of John Denver's, death on the plane he was doing and, flying and all that kind of stuff. I was just very, very sad. Like what a loss. He was just still such an amazing creative artist and contributor to the music world.
Yeah, for sure.
Glad I could bring everybody down. Danny got a song for us.
Do I have one?
No.
like a John Denver tune?
Sure. Let's pay a little tribute to John Denver. What's your favorite John Denver tune, or one that you can think of off the top of your head that you like a lot?
Calypso, Any Song. Those are probably
right. Calypso, that's right. Yeah.
That's probably the top of my head tunes.
Are you a fan, Farley?
So,
come on,
John Denver. I appreciate John Denver in terms of songwriting, and I tap my foot.
Okay.
Great Muppets album.
Love the Muppets album. I have that.
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't say that I'm overwhelmingly a huge fan. In my family, growing up, my dad was really big into like Sly and the Family Stone. Mm-hmm. Otis Redding, James Brown, we did do a little Casey and the Sunshine Band. But it was fairly, and then my mom was kind of into hip hop. So we listened to like,
that cracks
that
me up
too. So
I love that your mom was into hip hop. That's wild.
Yeah. Well, I was okay with it. Like early on, it was like, Tone Loc and Young MC, Run DMC. They were into that. When she kind of got into Eminem, I was like, this is a little strange. A little, but I appreciate that about her.
That's awesome.
So Dan, one of the things that you always, I guess what's interesting to hear you talk about like stress and anxiety, because one of the things I and I've shared this with you privately, but I'll say it publicly too. Like, I've always kind of admired the fact that you don't ever seem that way. Like, you don't ever ever seem stressed. And I've seen you in some pretty intense moments, working together. And so I'm just kind of curious what you think about that.
I think,
no,
it's not.
Is that something
it's certainly not something that I consciously think about. I think when we're presented with really challenging and difficult situations, it's twofold. My natural reaction is to calm down. So when things get intense, when things get stressful, it's to I don't know what it is, but I think biologically, I just tend to slow down. I tend to be quieter, not panic, or try not to panic, even though I might be feeling that panic inside. It's just kind of a natural biological thing. And then it's also that type of deflection that happens sometimes too, which isn't always helpful, but with the cutting the tension with a joke, or trying to keep things light even though they're very heavy. That's not always helpful, and sometimes that it doesn't always serve everybody in the best way. But I think that's kind of how I go about, when things get stressful, I try to stay calm, or I maybe just start being calm for some reason. And it's some of that deflection. And again, I don't know if those things are good or if they're helpful all the time, but it's just kind of how I've naturally and always responded to stressful situations, or situations where there's a lot happening and there's a lot of unknowns in the situation. So trying to slow down, be calm, and keep things as light as you could. I was also something I sometimes think about. I'm a middle child, so in a lot of ways, it's protecting the I don't know how to say, protecting almost the stability of the group, right? I'm trying to make sure that everybody is getting
really
along.
Excellent way to put that.
Make sure that there's a balance between the other opposing forces in the family. So being somebody that was in the middle, I could get along with my older sister, I could get along with my younger brother, and I would be the kind of the glue or the balance in between those two.
Interesting. Did you grow up with a lot of music in your house?
A little bit, but it was more of that so I remember my mom's record player, and we would put on Billy Ocean or something like that, and we would dance around the room to get out of my dreams and into my car, which is maybe a creepy song, but when I was a little guy just excited about Billy Ocean, it was one of the things that we put on and just danced around the living room too. So it was a lot of that type of things. A lot of the songs that I think about, those 70s love songs and 80s love songs, it reminds me of sitting in the back of my mom's station wagon, right? And just listening to those songs as we were going wherever the heck we were going as kids. So.
Oh, that's very fun. Now, did you play instrument besides for the recorder?
No, I'm not really talented at all. So
although he plays ditties pretty well. He'll or even loops from Dr. Dre or whatever. One day we're sitting at the piano and he starts playing Dr. Dre.
It was a
Snoop. I don't remember what it was.
So
but
there's little things, and a lot of it is usually movie theme songs. For whatever reason, I know the theme song to the movie Willow on the recorder and the piano. So if you need somebody to play that, you know who to call. Yeah.
Great. I'll know who to call.
If that ever comes up as a need.
That's awesome. I'll be like, people, I can bring it, and we call Dan.
That's right.
Dan, I don't know what kind of time you have, but do you have a few minutes, or you have to? I know you had a kid. I didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's
duties.
It's approaching the bedtime, so. But what were you thinking?
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of curious. What are your thoughts around failure, and how? I know that's kind of a big question to just kind of hit you with, but this podcast focuses on failure, but I'm just curious, like when you think about failure, how do you think about it?
So I've thought a lot about it, especially since you guys talk about it on the pod, and I like you both so much. So I keep coming back. So that, like, to think about and talk about failure, and one of the things that kind of always kind of comes to my mind when thinking about it is, it's probably a lot easier to talk about than it is to go through, right? Like when we're talking about it, we're thinking about it in retrospect. It's much easier to talk and describe and see the benefit and the value of it than when you're living in it. And you guys have done a nice job of talking about this concept kind of regularly, but like it's that idea that we don't necessarily understand how valuable it is and how much we learn from it until we're past it, until we can move past it. So so even like thinking about the music from today, when we're in it, when we're in these moments of failure or underperforming or being let down, like how do you recognize that you're in it and that there is value to it, and you're learning in that moment, and not necessarily deflecting and not necessarily trying to drag yourself out of it, but really like embracing it and understanding that at this moment I'm learning so much about myself, and I'm learning so much about how I respond to certain situations. But I mean, it's so easy to talk about after the fact and so easy to talk about in theory, but when you're living in it and when you're going through it, it's far more difficult to see the forest for the trees.
Oh, 1,000%. I think you brought up a really excellent point with, living it versus deflecting it versus joking through it versus pretending it's not there, disassociating from it. And oftentimes when those become your go-tos, you don't even know that it is your go-to. And so I think that you hit on something that if you can recognize, oh, this is me compartmentalizing, I need to stop and go through this, because each of those things delays that process, which when you're in it, it doesn't feel good. There is not one iota of it that says, I like this. Let's go ahead and exist in this feeling space right here, but to make yourself do that. I know.
Yeah.
Right. We don't
look at me grow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it would be nice if it worked that way, though.
Mm-hmm. But that's what our podcast is, right? We're here for each other. We're a network. Right. We're a support system. We're the people to say, hey, I know that you're feeling in that really low spot right now. And if you don't feel like having a hand to help you up, that's cool. I'm going to crawl in there with you and sit next to you and remind you that whatever you're thinking and feeling, you are entitled to think and feel. But I think these positive things, I'm going to point out your strengths to you. I'm going to remind you of the capacity you have to be your best self and stay by your side until you're ready to stand up.
And maybe that's part of
that's what's so great. And that's what our podcast family
part of the music too choices from tonight. It's like, it's more than just the music that you listen to. It's like the people that it reminds you of and the people that support you through those times.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Dan, it's been wonderful to see you again and talk to you and connect with you. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time.
Sure. It's always good to see you.
Actually, it probably hasn't really been as long as you think, but between COVID and then relocation and you leaving Bloomfield, like different jobs, different everythings, it's like, oh my gosh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good to see you too and talk to you both.
Yeah, we should have a homecoming theme song right now.
And
a reunion theme song.
It could be the end of the Friday Night Lights episode. That's the one.
There we go. Yes, can, in many ways. Many ways.
All right, Dan, I'm going to turn the Mike Volpe question on you. If there's one song you hope that comes to people's mind when they hear this podcast, what do you hope it is?
I wanna say
that's on the spot, man. That's on the spot.
That's okay.
I know. He's got it. He's
so cool under pressure.
No, it's a pretend. I told you this before.
Is Inside your panicking, outside your comp. I like it. I like it.
I think it
You
would
must be a
be
school administrator.
That's it. That's the one. I think it would be the Casey and the Sunshine Band tune. Like just something like super peppy
Nice.
and anything from the disco era I think is
Yay.
fine. Right?
Love it.
Very good. Cool.
Thank you for that.
Well, hey,
I'm glad that that's what you thought of.
I thank you for joining us tonight. I know you got a busy household and a long day of work, so we won't keep you, but appreciate you taking the time and curating that list for us. So if you shoot me that list via text, if you just take a screenshot, I'll put
Okay, very good.
I'll put it in the show notes so folks can follow up.
You better.
I'll spell check it.
All right, great to see you.
All right, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Dan, it's
Talk
been
to you later.
wonderful. So to you,
Bye.
cheers. We always do a cheers at the end.
That's
So
right.
even though we're not drinking
Cheers.
any
Oh, yes.
libations right now, I have water. I don't know what anybody else has, but here it is. Raise a glass and
I have
cheers.
tea.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you.